I'm gonna preface this by saying I'm not turning into a VR chat YouTuber or a VTuber or anything like that. This is just the quickest and easiest way for me to showcase a potential new face for the channel. I eventually planned on getting into 3D animation utilizing this avatar I made, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm gonna cut the filler and just get straight to the point. Rec Room has been in a terrible state for nearly the past 5 years straight, and I do not think it will ever get any better. Now I know I've already talked about Rec Room in depth before in the past, but some stuff has changed, the game has settled down a little bit, and honestly, I'm not really happy with how that video turned out. I still do go by some of what I said in that video, but I really want to take a second shot explaining how the game has gone to shit, rather than why I'm just personally dissatisfied with it. I'm going to try to keep this a little bit short because I know I've already talked about Rec Room Death before in the past. And also, it really doesn't help that as of recording this, it's a pretty popular trend to just shit on Rec Room for seemingly no reason. If you do want to see a little bit more of an in-depth explanation about what Rec Room has been doing to their game, I highly recommend taking a look at Rec Room: The Best Way to Kill a Game by The Luchinator. I'll have a link in the description in case you want to look at that. For those of you who are still here, then for one last time, let's talk about Rec Room. Just to keep things consistent, I don't really want to talk about things they have done versus things I think they should have done. I don't really want to take a look at how buggy the game has gotten or how bad the performance is on some other platforms. As much as those are valid complaints, theoretically those can be fixed. I want to take a look at the things that cannot be fixed, or at the very least is extremely difficult to fix given the state the game is in. I also want to try to avoid talking about the game's history, as that can just be seen as being blinded by nostalgia. I want to take a look at the now, and pretend like Rec Room was always like this, completely forget what made the game good back then, and showcase why the game is absolutely abysmal to play today. I don't blame any one single person, or a team of people for that matter, for anything they've done. Most of what I'm about to be saying is entirely due to the higher-ups and investors leading the game down the path it's currently on. So UGC in Rec Room, or user-generated content, has been declining in quality for years now, and Rec Room keeps still trying to push it as Rec Room's new identity. Every update they release only contains features and bug fixes for the makeup pen, and all content updates are all UGC focused. The game has become more Roblox ripoff than its own thing. So much so to the point where they decided to copy Roblox's homework and make an external editor called Rec Room Studio. I originally thought Rec Room Studio was going to get the game off of PlayStation and ultimately kill what is potentially their second largest platform. But then Unreal Editor for Fortnite got announced, and then Roblox ship came to PlayStation, so my prediction was wrong. But at the same time, can you blame me for thinking what I thought at the time, given how strict Sony is with UGC? Regardless, Rec Room Studio was overall detrimental for UGC, and for all of the wrong reasons too. I think the concept is great, and if it released somewhere in 2019 when UGC was arguably at its peak, then I feel like Rec Room Studio would have been this amazing tool. But as of where it stands, and even at the time frame of it releasing, barely anybody used it, and the people who are using it are mostly just using it to make slop content faster than ever. This isn't the fault of everybody who uses Rec Room Studio, or even Rec Room Studio in general. Again, the tool is amazing, I get what they were going for. It just released at possibly the worst time. For context, at the time, Rec Room had recently released keys and consumables into the UGC ecosystem, letting creators make tokens off of their hard work. And a few months later, they granted the ability to cash out those tokens for real-life money at just an absolutely horrible conversion ratio. And almost immediately after doing so, pretty much every single big-name creator who didn't have any shame in doing so set out to make as many slop rooms as they could possibly think of, flood them to hell and back with keys and consumables, and exploit as many systems as they could possibly get away with just to profit for as much as humanly possible. And instead of adding stricter guidelines and moderation practices to try to minimize the problem, they set out to release Rec Room Studio, which made the whole thing much worse. However, I will say when it first released and it was still a selective program, it was nice. Only a select handful of people were able to do anything with it, and some amazing games were made possible with its existence. It wasn't until a couple of months later when it was given out to everybody with a Rec Room Plus subscription and just slightly more than just a handful of subscribers, and that is how we got such amazing games such as Only Up RRS. For every singular well-made room there is in Rec Room, there is at least another 10 more copy-paste minimum effort slop following it, flooded with keys and consumables, and is likely exploiting a shit ton of systems for profit. In fact, UGC in Rec Room is so flooded with slop, to the point where some of the biggest named creators who made some of the highest quality content in the game have ditched the platform in favor of VRChat and or Roblox. Pretty much all the controversy around UGC and Rec Room is entirely driven by the greed of the creators and the will they have to exploit as many systems as they can get away with. And it's not like Rec Room can just get rid of the payment program. If they did, they'd be cutting off half their revenue, quite literally every creator move over to VRChat or Roblox, the game would likely die then and there. And it seems like no matter how many policies they put into place, how hard they try to fix this, the damage has been done, and this will forever stay a core part of Rec Room UGC. No content, no effort, no originality, just microtransaction and exploitation hell. And this is the future they keep desperately trying to push, when the community has made it very clear this is not the future the game needs, both as a player and as a creator. If you make slop content in Rec Room and then proceed to brag about how much bank you make, go work minimum wage. You'll make at least 5 times more than you'll ever make in Rec Room. That's not a joke. Well, if the community-made content is so bad, then what about the official stuff? And yes, the official content is almost always superior to what the UGC has to offer. You got games like Laser Tag, Paintball, The Quests, Charades, Stunt Runner, Disc Golf. The Rec Room originals are by far some of the most fun you will get out of Rec Room. Assuming you find players who are competent enough to know what they're doing, and aren't just brain-dead toxic assholes, I'm getting ahead of myself. If you manage to find good players, then yes, the Rec Room originals are no doubt the best thing about Rec Room. Depending on which ones you play. The older ones, pretty good. The newer ones, not so much. Now I know I said I was going to try to avoid talking about Rec Room's history, but this is an important note. Ever since 2020, Rec Room has stated numerous times that the Rec Room originals were not profitable, and thought it wouldn't be worth any effort to put in the effort into making them. The last good Rec Room original they released was Stunt Runner back in 2019. I'm not counting Make It to Midnight due to the fact it's just Dead by Daylight with a couple of small twists, though it gets a pass due to being more game than any other game they released in the past 5 years. Completely ignoring how they used to do things, the current Rec Room original release schedule goes something like this. A new original releases, it has little content can be played and fully completed within a couple of days. There's no reason to replay due to the only content having been the same mindless repetitive task over and over again, and it's overall not that great outside of the first 2 or 3 times you perform said mindless task. We have to wait like 3 to 5 months for them to announce a new one at RecCon or something. We don't hear about it again for another 4 to 6 months. It releases, same story, the cycle repeats. I get they're not profitable, but come on, telling us to wait for almost a year just to be handed a game with less content than the original Super Mario Bros. That is damn near inexcusable, no matter what game you're talking about. And this all goes to show how hard Rec Room is pushing for UGC to completely take over the platform. So much so to the point where they're expanding the clothing too. Now I will say, as of recording this, UGC clothing items aren't all that awful. I do like a handful of what the community has been able to pull off, and I really enjoy seeing, for the first time since 2020, high quality items at more reasonable prices. However, take note of what I just said. As of recording this, UGC Avatar items are the exact same stance Rec Room Studio was a few years back, where only a select handful of people have it. But mark my words, when Avatar Studio releases to the public with little to no moderation, shit is going to hit the fan. We've already seen the same thing happen with inventions, community rooms, custom shirts. It's going to happen again with Avatar items. I'd argue it is already happening. I'm not going to directly fault the creators of what I'm about to say. Everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses, I get that. Not everybody can be a one-man team. With that being said, Rec Room has accepted such missions such as beveled cube and AI-generated pizza texture. If we're getting low effort while this is still a selective system, I can only imagine what's going to happen when everybody has access to it. However, I will say at least Avatar items take a little bit more effort than just going to the Inventor Store or Google Images. Doesn't mean clothing items are safe from potential slop. It just means it's going to be a little bit harder to make. If you're a hardcore Rec Room fan desperately holding on to the game waiting for it to turn around, in the nicest way possible, you're holding on to nothing. The game has been how it is for nearly 3 years straight, and in some cases has gotten worse. There's no hope for the company to suddenly turn around, have a change of heart, and go back to doing what they said numerous times was not profitable. And even if they do manage to turn things around, can you really trust it's going to stay like that? They've demonstrated countless times that they prioritize monetary value over the welfare of their community. Everything from the removal of weekly challenges without giving us any form of replacement, the statements they've made in their Q&A videos openly saying the game is heading in a new direction, and in the middle of me editing this video they just announced Maker AI. They've lost their trust a long time ago. Now I understand I can't change everybody's mind. Some people will still try holding on to the game. I get that. I was the same way. But at the very least, just take a look at alternatives. I'm not saying you have to play them all the time. You might not even prefer playing them over Rec Room. I get that. Just give them a shot before outlawing them altogether. Okay, I'm done. The Rec Room slander is over. If that's all you came here for, you can click off now. I am done talking about Rec Room. I just want to spend the next few minutes talking about a potential future for the channel. Now, why I didn't just make a separate channel update video? Well, because I don't anyone really remembers who I am after hibernating for over a year, and also it doesn't make sense for a 1,000 subscriber channel such as myself to make such a video, so I'll squeeze it in here. I'll try to keep it short. For those who don't know or don't remember, I used to make content featuring Rec Room, mostly skits and acting stuff. Keyword used to. I've been dissatisfied with the game for a long time now. So much so to the point where I decided to rant about it for over half an hour. And even though that video was poorly researched, hasn't aged well, and I talked in depth about subjects I have no right to be talking about, I think I made it clear enough that the game had accrued several major issues, and that I was completely done with everything it had to offer. That video was my last true passion project of the game. Everything else that came after it was mostly just me finishing up unfinished business. Rec Room on March 11th, 2023 was made to mock how inconsistent the social standards are based on recent events at the time. Expiration date was me finishing up what I had started 2 years prior. And Cryptic's Reorchestrated was basically done before I even started 5 years. I just never had an excuse to upload it. I think it's fair to say I have no plans to return to Rec Room, and any Rec Room content I was working on, I gave up on after just a few months. I had this one video planned where I would take a look at all the Rec Room originals at the time, that got scrapped due to me having no interest in the game, and another video where I would time travel back to the day the game released and experience Rec Room throughout its entire history, which, again, got scrapped for the same reason. As I said at the beginning of this video, I do eventually want to get into some form of 3D animation in the future. I don't know exactly when that future will be, but it is the next most likely step for me. I've been learning how to use Blender for a while now, and even though there's still a lot left for me to learn, I feel confident saying that animation isn't too far-fetched. As of the kind of stuff I want to make, that's still up in the air. I know some people like the Scout the Bus style stuff I made, and while I'm not opposed to doing more plagiarism, I also don't want that to become my main identity. Just know that I am pretty much completely done with Rec Room. If I decide to make another long-form documentary or something, it's going to be a Blender animation. Now, aside from animation, there are a couple of other things I would like to do with the channel. I'm not exactly sure how clear I made this before in the past, but this channel has always just been whatever in terms of what I decide to do with it. I never really had a consistent upload schedule, I never really tried sticking to one subject for too long, even though it has mostly just been Rec Room. I've always just done whatever, whenever I was bored, and that's kind of what I plan for the future. This isn't my job. This is a hobby for me. Exhibit A. I really don't want to force myself to have a consistent upload schedule or only make videos on one subject. That would suck all the fun out of this for me. So in terms of what I might upload is entirely dependent on what I'm interested in at the time. I've been learning how to mod H3VR for a little bit now, so there's a chance I'll upload a trailer or something for mods I make. I have this really ambitious VR acting project for H3VR that's roughly on the same level of expiration date was, that I would like to eventually get to. And I would like to finally learn how to use FL Studio, so there's a chance I might upload some form of music or something, but nothing is definite. These are just things I think would be most likely based on what I'm interested in right now. I forgot to write an outro for this video.